So I got to thinking, after the Broncos are celebrating their big win over the weekend, the Broncos are every friend you have ever had who is in a toxic relationship. The Broncos are in a toxic relationship with the status quo. The status quo has mistreated them for years, and they were about to leave the status quo, but then the status quo took them out to a nice fancy dinner. They made up. They went back to status quo's place. Everybody wakes up the next morning feeling great, but you're still in that toxic relationship with the status quo. So let's bring in Broncos insider Mike Kliss to ask, are the Broncos going to allow a few wins to convince them not to break up with the status quo in the offseason?
I think roster-wise, quarterback-wise, it's still going to be a breakup and a change, a new romance somewhere else. With the coaching staff, maybe with John Elway, Joe Ellis, and Vance Joseph, there's a real chance that they rekindle their romance and it buds from here. They still got to fix some holes throughout the roster, but a win, this toxic relationship, perhaps it will be repaired. Not that they would call it toxic relationship, Kyle.
Broncos
with Vance Joseph and many coaches.
Oh, put your stuff in a box, Broncos. You got to move out. We'll call you a cab. It'll be fine. Mike Kliss, many thanks. Colorado is a stingy state. You know, since voters took power over all tax increases in 1992, we've only approved 2 of them: cigarettes and marijuana, sin taxes. And driving is not seen by many as a sin. So despite CDOT's outgoing leader pleading to increase our 22-cent a gallon gas tax, it has not budged since 1991. Now, smart people know the sneaky way to slip a tax by Coloradans is to call it a fee. So that's what CDOT calls its pilot program that would have you paying by the mile. Marshall Zellinger took part in the test.
Earlier this year, CDOT had me put one of these green devices into my car's computer slot to track my mileage. The test: what if the state got rid of the 22-cent per gallon gas tax and replaced it with a 1.2-cent per mile fee? Based on my driving habits during the test in my Honda Civic, I would pay about a cup of coffee more each month. Long story short, fuel-efficient drivers would pay more than they're used to, jalopies would pay less. CDOT's final report says the test was not to determine how much it would bring in, but if it was even technically feasible.
What if somebody registers a car in another state and drives into this state, right? Or how do we manage overhead costs?
These are also questions we had that CDOT doesn't quite have the answer for yet. Security is another concern. CDOT's own final report on this pilot project stated one of the biggest challenges will be convincing the public that any data collected on road usage will be protected and that drivers are not being actively monitored when they travel.
We built a very solid firewall between the private sector and CDOT. The only thing that could flow through that fortified wall was a VIN number and a mileage measurement associated with it.
We never ask ourselves if in the security field, we ask ourselves when.
Security expert and Metro State professor Steve Beatty also wants to know about privacy and the data CDOT collects.
There have been very few places that have not been breached. Even some of the most sensitive and secure places in the world have been breached.
So what about the data collected by the company operating the system for CDOT? Some of the devices plugged into the cars can be enabled with GPS.
We have to rest assured knowing that our private sector counterparts are equally diligent in their efforts to protect the user's information.
CDOT's own report says that after 10 years from now, they really don't have the money to upkeep the system, so they got to figure out all these answers to the questions within the next 10 years. Kyle, you could take a picture of your odometer and turn it in. That's how the test was done. I put a device in that didn't have GPS. It could have GPS, but before people freak out, if it's tracking your location, go to your location services on your phone, and if it's on, you've already given that up.
It's tracking you there. All right, about time you and your fancy car started paying your fair share, Marshall. Thank you, sir. No disrespect to Governor Hickenlooper, but if you say his name on live television enough times, it is bound to come out garbled at least once, like one of several versions that appeared on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire today. Hickenlooper, Lupinhicker, Hoopinlicker, Lickenhooper. The contestant did get the answer correct, had to use a lifeline though, polled the audience. I recall the first time that I mashed up the governor's name coming out of my mouth, my audience had something to say about it as well. So let's show a little love to our package delivery folks again this year. You know, it never hurts to leave the thank you note out with a bottle of water or Gatorade or a snack bar. These people are running left, right, and center. And a special shout out tonight to a man who's been delivering for Glenwood Springs for 3 decades. Dale Hawkins is retiring next year after 35 years of delivering packages for UPS. All of Glenwood knows him, and his son, Adam. Adam used to come along when he was in high school as his dad's extra holiday help. Adam's all grown up now, lives in Arkansas. Yesterday, he came all the way home to Colorado to surprise his dad, to go out on the route together one last time. They were out till 9:30 last night, a Hawkins family tradition. All right, gather round, children. It is time for a story of holiday fails, because it's the thought that counts. Andrew Apodaca got real. He told his parents he did not want to be in his holiday concert at the Clayton Partnership School in Thornton, but they still stuck Andrew in the front row, green shirt, red bow tie. Mom Jennifer said, "Andrew, just move your lips, baby. Do the hand motions." Like hell I will, Andrew clearly thought. So he stood there like a stone, song after song. We have blurred out all of the other children for their privacy, but I'll be honest, that's pretty much what it looked like when we were watching it crying laughing in the next office today. You do you, Andrew. Although he did ask his mom later how he did. She told him so-so, and he cried. When your best holiday plans fail, come on, have some fun. Share them with the rest of Colorado. Email next@9news.com or just use the hashtag HeyNext. That sigh of relief you heard in Colorado when Republican Roy Moore lost in Alabama, that was coming from our Republican Senator Cory Gardner. Brandon Ritteman explains how the tide that rolled last night could wash over Colorado.
Cory Gardner was harder than many Republicans on Roy Moore, publicly calling for Moore to be expelled from the Senate if he'd have won. He gets to avoid that dogfight now because Moore didn't win Alabama. Doug Jones did, the Democrat. After the race was called, Gardner had an odd take on that, writing, "I hope Senator-elect Doug Jones will do the right thing and truly represent Alabama by choosing to vote with the Senate Republican majority." Well, that earned some jokes, even from fellow Republicans. "Interesting spin here," wrote GOP operative Roger Hudson. "Recruiting a newly elected Democrat to vote Republican? Let me know how that works. Hashtag hypnosis, hashtag waterboarding, hashtag charm." The morning after, Gardner put a finer point on Alabama.
This isn't a rebuke of conservative values or agendas. This is a rebuke of a candidate.
And he's got a point there. Alabama still is a deep red state, but there's also a fight for the heart and soul of the Republican Party that's primed to jump from Alabama to Colorado. Moore got a lot of help from Steve Bannon, the conservative blogger who served as advisor to President Trump. He helped Moore win the primary, and the president followed suit by endorsing Moore. Bannon's declared war, his words, on mainstream Republican leaders, and we could see it play out in Colorado's race for governor next year. Our own conservative firebrand, Tom Tancredo, says he's been talking with Bannon about trying to beat more mainstream Republicans here next year, which might help explain why the state party chair today called on everybody to move on, writing, "The more energy we spend consternating about Alabama, the less we'll have for Colorado." For Next, I'm Brandon Ritteman.